Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Next in Time podcast. I'm your host, ST Tangarella, and today our guest is none other than Peter Sisson. If you want to know more about Peter, he is a serial entrepreneur with an AI background who excels at design products. He started 4 companies which have successfully exited, which include WineShopper.com, Mixonic, Teleo, and Line2. And currently right now he is working on his 5th startup, CertifyIt. So CertifyIt is the main purpose of CertifyIt is to be able to fight fake news, fake reviews, and fake products, and being able to be the fast and factual antidote. And he's trying to solve the problem of misinformation out in every corner, and that startup is the pathway to do so. So, Peter, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, ST.
Well, hopefully that I heard that you kind of like when you started this company, you were trying to like figure out ways on how you start, right? Like you had initially started off as like a video platform until what you did right now.
Yeah, so we launched in November of 2019, initially with a plan to target travel because the way the app works is it plots the videos that you record onto a map, and it seemed to be more useful than like Instagram or Facebook, where travel related posts scroll away and aren't really useful other than causing FOMO. But with launching November 2019, obviously COVID wrecked those plans. So we scratched our heads for a minute and then looked at real estate, because with social distancing, we thought that there would be a need for people to do house tours that could be mapped to each of the houses. And so we targeted real estate, hired people to help create content and do outreach. And we got about 5,000 realtors onto the platform. But in the end, didn't feel like the product market fit was there enough to scale a big business. Part of the problem was, the way the app works is there's no filters, there's no touching up, there's no nothing to sort of make it look prettier than it actually is. Everything's very transparent.
Oh, yeah,
and in the real estate,
I was going to say, where are you currently at with your startup?
Well, I was going to move on from the real estate thing after we determined that there wasn't really enough. Basically, real estate agents like to be able to present perhaps, let's call it a glossier image of a place than our videos showed, and they want more polish. And so the next step was to look into other use cases, and there's a little bit of a story behind it, but we discovered interest and need in the news and other categories related to news coverage.
Right, makes sense. So yeah, I was gonna say that when you started off with CertifyIt, it was like you had different pivots that you made. And it's like, do you feel that the experience that you learned with these pivots are like, does that reflect upon your previous background as a startup founder in general? Like you had found, and everything?
Yeah, I think one of the key traits to successful entrepreneurs is perseverance. There's lots of stories of famous companies, household names like Slack and even Twitter, that had a longer road than most people know to actually finding product market fit. I mean, Slack was actually a failed gaming company that had developed an internal tool which they realized might have value, and pivoted to making that their product rather than the game they had created. And now they're a multi-billion-dollar company. And I think what I've learned is it takes a while. It's not what is perhaps portrayed or thought, that founders just get it right the first time and that it's a fast track to success. It's mostly about dogged determination and continue to try different things until something clicks.
Makes sense. So tell me about when you began. Like, you've been in the startup journey for many years now. Like, tell me about where you come from. How did you manage to get into the world of startups?
So I, a geek by nature, picked last in sports when I was in junior high school, and studying computer science before it was cool, and ultimately ended up at grad school at Stanford, getting a master's in computer science, artificial intelligence, probably one of the first countries the first programs in the country offering an AI master's. This was back in 1987, which sounds like the dark ages.
And this was in Stanford, right?
That's correct, at Stanford, and that was a precursor to me working for a while at Bell Labs, which has now become Lucent, and I think Lucent now became Nokia, I believe.
I initially thought Bell Labs became AT&T or something.
It did. That was on its way. So it was Bell Labs, then AT&T, then Lucent, then Nokia. And it's not what it was in terms of it's not a major research power that it was in its heyday.
What was the environment like for the tech world back in the 80s compared to now?
It was okay. So in terms of what we were using, most people did not have computers. They were a new thing. Geeks like me had Apple IIs or Apple IIe. And then the Mac came out, and I think it was 84-ish. And so the first little Mac with 128K of RAM, if you can believe that, actually of ROM. So the entire OS fit in 128K, which is just hard to imagine. And that's not true, actually. Not the entire OS, but it was amazing how much was done with very little memory. And at the time, computer science was, still COBOL programming, Fortran programming, still often done on punch cards, where you would use these punch cards to enter programs into mainframe computers. You'd have to schedule time to get access.
These were all things that even today there's a bunch of current systems, like the government systems, financial systems, they do run on old mainframe systems, right? They use mainframe technology, and the fun fact is that I actually work on some of them as currently because
even today,
it's like I felt like when I was doing that, it's fun, at least because it kind of gives you a feel good factor of working with computers in a way. But then it's a bit dated. But when you realize that the transition to the current modern technology, which includes the cloud and fewer data centers in general, it's like night and day, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, consider the fact that everything was wired. There was no wireless, and consider the fact that nothing was networked except maybe in a LAN, and then academics had access to early precursors of the internet. But so a computer was a self-contained device without any access to a network and with a printer attached. And you would buy software that you would load into the computer off of a disk. And it was pretty.
I remember I remember this back when I was a kid. I went to a computer. We remember even in first grade we had computer training, and I remember the time when it was the era of the floppy disk, where whatever you worked on, you saved it on a floppy disk, and then you just basically give the floppy disk to the instructor. They'll give it back to you during the next session, and you have to put the floppy disk back and then load the stuff. So that was those were fun times in a way for me.
And then all it would take was one crash or the power to go out or someone to kick the plug out, and you could lose hours of work. There was nothing like we have today where everything's sort of safely backed up as you go. I
Yeah.
just remember horrible evenings of having just finished something and then having something go wrong and losing hours of work. You can imagine what that was like. Pull your hair out.
Yeah, makes sense. Those were some interesting times. But anyway,
They were.
but yeah, tell me, yeah, because right now we want to go into your startup world because you had four exits and
That's
like four
correct.
successful startup exits. What were those experiences like as a startup founder? Well, what do you feel were the challenges and what do you feel like were your biggest triumphs?
Um, the biggest challenges were not knowing what the hell I was doing with the first startup and having this was one for selling wine online before it was legal to ship wine to most states. So we had to go out and actually get regulators to change the laws, which we successfully did in 26 states. Now, how do you do that? You need a lot of money. So we raised $46 million, and our largest investor was Jeff Bezos, Amazon. So I actually got
Yeah.
to meet with Jeff Bezos quarterly,
This
and
was
I was a
before.
kid.
Yeah, this was before Jeff became the big star, right?
Well, he was still a sweetheart of Silicon Valley because Amazon was the biggest and most promising startup and was already well beyond books by then. And his expansion strategy was to sell everything except in areas where there were regulated industries. He didn't want to have to deal with that, so he would invest in partner. And he did one with a company called drugstore.com and then with my company, wineshopper.com. And each of us were supposed to end up as tabs on the site. Drugstore.com made it before the meltdown of April 2000. We didn't. And ultimately, the company was acquired by our competitor, wine.com, who had raised $96 million.
To buy your company.
Well, they had raised it. This is the heyday. This is the first .com era of the late 90s, and money was flowing towards every idea out there with the concept that whoever was the first mover to build a presence on the web, the thinking at the time was that you would own it. And so it was basically companies were funded with excessive amounts of money to just quickly emerge as the dominant owner of a category. And so Kleiner Perkins, which was, the equivalent today would be Andreessen Horowitz or Benchmark, or a top fund, Excel. But Kleiner Perkins at the time was the top dog. They had invested in Amazon and Netscape and dozen household names that you Cisco, everything. So that was the big, lots of money, lots of publicity.
Do you feel like that
kind of
parallels to all the Web 3.0 crypto startups happening right now?
Oh, I do. And that's a whole topic we could get into.
Yeah.
About, the hype versus the reality.
Yeah.
And much like the crypto bubble burst, the .com bubble burst in April 2000, and companies just fell dead left and right. And it was either merge or die because VCs were not going to back you anymore. They ran screaming for the doors, which VCs often do when things go south. And in the end, it was a classic bubble that burst. And the valuations were crazy, and it all came tumbling down. And what's ironic or sad even is that the current wine.com is not either of the companies, mine or wine.com. In fact, after the acquisition, wine.com collapsed under its own weight about a year later. And
interesting. You just got out before it got worse.
Yeah, it got, they had 300 employees. They hadn't reduced costs fast enough. And, e-commerce was still just catching up. And so a little company, it was it's a wonderful story because the little company that couldn't raise Vineyard, it was called, which because we two kingpins had raised all the money, nobody would fund them. They had to build a business the old-fashioned way, slowly and steadily on the backs of real customers and real revenues. And they were the one left standing. And when wine.com melted, they bought the name and the customer list for a pittance. And then the infrastructure that we had built at Wine Shopper for legal shipping got restarted as a back-end fulfillment company.
That makes sense. And so in terms of the other three startups, were they all acquired through a rough patch, or were they acquired because of the fact that you were making money and you were just like, you know what, they're ready to acquire you?
No, they all got acquired for sort of the right reasons, although they were only one was sort of everybody was happy. So that was my third company, Telio, which Skype had just come out, and this was basically a version. Think of it as a version of Skype, but with telephone numbers before Skype had telephone numbers, and with click to call, where you could click on a link in a browser or email to call it. Those are actually novel concepts at the time. And big corporates like AOL, which was big at the time, Microsoft, and then Yahoo, which was a major player at the time, all got, and Google, all were in a race to come up with an answer to Skype. And we were doing trying to do white label partnerships with them where they could private label our software because we had patents pending. And two of the four, Yahoo and Microsoft, kicked it up to M&A, and we got a bidding war going. And we ended up selling the company for $23 million to Microsoft after a year of work, with no customers. And
what year was this?
This was in 2006.
2006, basically when the startups, during the era when startups are starting to get into the forefront.
That's right, 2005. The exit was in 2006, but we started in, basically early 2005, like 2004. So that one was just crazy. And, that was, everybody was happy. The investors were happy. The 8 employees that got full-time jobs at Microsoft were actually happy. Microsoft was, I guess, a cooler job at the time.
Yeah.
And
I think also because I think one thing I've learned through watching startups get acquired is that they're not just simply, okay, hey, here's the startup, buy it from us. That's it. I mean, what do is just take whatever they have from the startup and try to integrate that into their companies, and then basically they can build teams all together. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, basically the classic problem is that when a corporation gets big, they often lose their ability to innovate because they become risk adverse, and a groupthink kind of takes over. And so that ecosystem, it's a great model and continues to work today, is that the startups do the innovation. Many of them die trying, but some emerge, and then the companies watch that landscape and pick off the ones that have proven that something has a market and can work. Yeah. And they incorporate it into their existing product line, or sometimes keep it as a wholly owned division. But usually it eventually all just gets merged back in.
All right. So okay. That makes a lot of sense right there. So yeah, let's go ahead and get to know more about your current startup, which is CertifyIt. I mean, as you described earlier when we started, it was originally part of another company. It was originally another company before you pivoted to a video-based travel company or something related to real estate. And then so tell me about that journey, about how you started with this new startup.
It kind of it was definitely a random walk of exploration, is how I would best describe it. I took it slowly, in part because I really wasn't sure, where this. I knew what I sort of did it the wrong way, and what I mean by that is I just thought that it made more sense to put certain types of posts on maps,
Right.
and that a feed doesn't make sense like for anything related to travel, because when you're ready to travel, it's scrolled away in the feed and it doesn't really provide the information. And so, we all have in our phones the way it maps photos, but there isn't sort of a way to share those maps and sort of have a way to say, hey, I'm going to Italy, share me maps of your favorite places there. And then I can look through the videos in a feed that it sort of plays the map. And I can sort of say, oh, and bookmark the places I like, and then get directions to them. And it just seemed like a very handy, useful tool, and a better solution to the way people still do it today, which is they go on social media like Facebook and they say, hey, I'm going to Rome. Where should I go? And then there's like 30 comments. So that was the original concept. Before that, or on the way to that, we actually looked at augmented reality, and whether we should have the videos sort of. It actually initially wasn't even video as much. It was sort of informational avatars that would float over places friends had been with their comments about them. And but the AR ecosystem at the time really wasn't there. And so we kind of realized quickly with our customer testing that video was the place to be. And that those were the trends at the time. Is, we saw more and more the social platforms getting more and more video heavy.
Yeah. Well, especially TikTok.
Yeah. Well, this is in well before TikTok. We're talking 2017. We didn't incorporate till 2018, so we were still playing around.
When did you start working on this project? Like 20.
Believe it or not, 2016. Well, actually, more like 2016.
Yeah.
Was when we built a prototype that did augmented reality,
Right.
and it was cool, but the map tech, the problem with AR is persistent AR is that you need it to be very precisely mapped, because you're talking about something floating on a physical object in the camera. And that was the map tech. Like, we were in downtown San Francisco, and the map tech just, it wasn't, there's a lot of distortion from tall buildings. So the description would be 200 yards away sometimes from where it had been posted. So that was not going to be an experience that was going to be useful to customers, and that's why we backed away from it and moved to you pinning the video within about 200 yards of wherever you're located at the time.
Right.
And so the next thing that happened is, while we're playing around in real estate, there was an aha moment of, wait a minute, because this is, then, fake news was starting to become a topic, and deepfake video was starting to get better and better. And, we hadn't gotten to the point we have now with AI deepfakes that anyone can do with Midjourney or DALL E too. But we had, there was an issue with, whether a video was real or not. And I was like, the way we architected this, which is that the video is recorded live and edited live, and then needed to be uploaded to server so it could be shared, right? And then pinned to a map, actually served as a way to authenticate that it was real, because there was no way to upload a separate video that you could fake. And there was no way to get access to the video, because the app, once you were posted it moved off your phone. Right. And so there was an aha that happened in May of 2020, where I was like, wow, we can actually sort of use this to prove things. And that's when we coined the term certified reality, which we now have a trademark pending for, but simply along the lines of augmented reality and virtual reality and mixed reality. The feeling was there would eventually be a need, the way things are going, for certified reality. So for a
it's
type of
more
reality that we know is real.
the way you're trying to verify is if you're trying to take a video, go to a particular location, take a video, and then just be like, okay, this has been certified real or certified not real or something like that.
Yeah, it's basically the problem with uploaded videos is that they're loose files, and those loose files can be manipulated and
Right.
they can be changed and
Like
edited.
yeah, because I've always
Yeah,
felt that fear that, okay, there's going to be that day where people all they have to do is create a deep fake of someone doing something bad. Like, let's just say, even if
it's
they're not,
happening.
yeah. It's like, let's say, for example, you are out in San Francisco. Like, let's just say you are a famous person in San Francisco right now, and someone wants to take you down. And let's
Yeah.
say, and since you are well, let's just say you are a vegetarian, and
Mm-hmm.
you define yourself as a vegetarian, but then someone takes a video of you eating pork without really, not without any verification. Let's say they just create a video of you just to take you down,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
They
that
could, and
would,
they could then edit the metadata to
yeah,
set the date and time and location as anything they want. You can go
yeah,
into your iPhone or Android phone now, and any of your videos and photos, you can go and it lets you freely edit that metadata.
yeah.
And so you can easily give, and then because people don't read and don't think, they'll see that video and they'll be like, oh,
It
wow,
was such
there
a
he is eating a
well,
chicken leg.
he's out there trying to hoodwink you, thinking he's a vegetarian when in reality he is not.
Yeah, or worse, right?
Yeah.
So, pictures of Nancy
But
Pelosi doing something or Donald Trump doing something, or that's why
if
DALL
you
E,
could,
for example, restricts you from using public figures.
yeah, if you
Midjourney does not.
yeah, I'm just trying to think of another scenario where, let's just say, the president, like Joe Biden, I think one of his favorite things to do is bike ride. Instead,
Yep.
he went out there and just well, I would just say, let's just say someone made a video of Joe Biden just falling into the ditch or something like that without any proof that he fell into the
Right.
ditch, and then use that as a way to say, hey, he doesn't know what he's doing.
Right. And even though he did fall into a ditch, they could make him fall into more ditches and make him fall every day, or make him kiss Donald Trump. I mean, you could make anything happen. And that's why that's why I've really doubled down on this need that you just so pointedly illustrated, which is, if it's already getting decent now,
Yeah.
imagine what it's going to be like in 5 years.
Yeah, you could
And
just be
and
like, they
and
could just make some random video of yourself, and then you have to spend more time proving that you didn't do it than, let's say, okay, then other things. So that,
absolutely, and that's what the role of Certify is going to be, is that if you actually need to prove something in a way that people can't dispute, then that's the niche that we're trying to fill. Because if you just record it with your iPhone, people just say, well, you could have edited that, or you could have edited the metadata. I mean, it doesn't prove anything. And so to
yeah.
have an app that proves what it shows happened at the exact time and place that it shows, and hasn't been edited, no filters, no
Hmm.
augmented masks, nothing like Snap does, nothing like
Yeah.
Instagram does, it's just pure video. That there will be an increasing need for a tool like that. And that's the bet that we're placing.
Yep, that makes it makes a lot of sense in a way, because I feel that this kind of tool is necessary when you're trying, when you don't want to spend half your time proving your innocence. This is a tool that you could use to say, you know what, it's been certified as a fact that this is a fake video of me
Right.
or
And
something.
yeah, that this, if someone says, oh, you see something in the news, perhaps. Perfect example was, I believe there were fake images of the crowd size at Trump's inauguration that were shown on certain networks. And you could show up there
Yeah.
and in the same circumstance and you certify it to say, no, this is actually what the crowd size looks like. So you can use it as a debunker.
Hmm.
And then the other advantage is that because it moves the video off your phone right away,
Right.
let's say you were beaten by a police officer or attacked by somebody, the first thing that that person will try to do if you were filming them is grab your phone. And if they're successful, they can destroy the phone and perhaps the image that you captured. But CertifyIt moves it off your phone as quickly as it can. And so if you can stall them long enough to wait for the video to upload, or they're not aware of it, then no matter what happens to your phone, the video is still safe on our server. So it also could be a tool to, protect yourself. Like, I would use it if rather than my native camera to prove that someone did something bad. And because I've checked with lawyers, CertifyIt videos passed all the legal tests to be admissible as evidence in court, whereas standard cell phone video does not. It requires additional forensics to confirm that it's admissible as evidence.
Yeah. And just wondering, I think your tagline, fighting fake reviews, fake news, and fake products. So how is CertifyIt used for fake products and fake reviews? So I think you already covered the aspect of fake news through video.
Mm-hmm.
And but how do you how
It's a
are
great
you?
question. So
Yeah.
I'll go through reviews and then products. So I was trying to figure out, how can we make the addressable market bigger? So this would be potentially interesting to investors. And, just fighting fake news, there might not be as much of a business there as there would be in helping people avoid, making mistakes with being tricked by fake reviews or fake products, which, by the way, I don't have the numbers right offhand, but it's on the order of maybe $200 billion in a year of misdirected revenue due to fake reviews, where people purchase, go to a restaurant or book a hotel or buy a product that in fact was fakely reviewed, and so that those revenues should have gone to somebody else. And then for fake products, about 500 billion a year is misdirected towards fake products, much of that like counterfeit goods and what have you. So to use CertifyIt in each of those cases, and in terms of the fake review case for venues like a restaurant or a hotel, most of the fake reviews are generated by review farms, which are big rooms of people remote from the location who's never been to the location, because CertifyIt won't let you post the video without identifying your location. There's no way for a review farm to use it. You have to physically go to the place in order to, video it. And so there could be a process whereby a review could be authenticated by requiring you to post a short video of your experience there. So that would be, and I think video reviews will come as more and more people get familiar or video friendly. But until then, it could be sort of the level of review that's certified because you've used the app to prove you were physically at that restaurant, and therefore you have a right to review it. And then for fake products, if you go to Etsy or eBay, or an Amazon seller of some sort, you would simply require the seller to send you a video proving that they have the product in stock, that it's the product that they say it is, that if it's like something like a Roomba or something that they can turn it on and show you that it works.
Right.
And so and it also would force them to reveal their location. So they would have to, if they're trying to trick you, they're not going to want to post that video because it's going to show you where they live or where they ship from. And so it's kind of a way to force transparency on people, and transparency limits bad behavior.
Very cool. So I think we're kind of running low on time right now. So let me just quickly ask another question, which is, what would you, since you've been in the startup space for many years now, since like the early days,
more than 20 years,
more than 20 years, what advice would you give founders, and how would you like help guide them?
Well, I think first of all, make sure you're the right, that you have the personality that would allow you to be happy doing it. And so the characteristics that often correlate with successful founders are, one is curiosity. You're the type of person that wants to know why things are the way they are and questions why they are the way they are, because that curiosity is really what generates your ideas, that are founded in actually solving problems rather than just like looking for some idea to start a business around. The next is optimism.
Yeah.
There are tons of down days and bad moments and setbacks and pivots like we've gone through with CertifyIt. And you have to sort of have an optimistic viewpoint. Pessimists don't typically start successful companies. They give up way too soon. The third of the four, I think, I guess I call it, well, I mean, it's perseverance, right? It's that there is a point where you need to sort of read the writing on the wall, but many people give up too soon on something if it doesn't work the first time. And that's not how startups that succeed typically make it. They keep trying different things until something sticks. And that perseverance takes a lot of time. It can take a lot of time. And then the last characteristic is empathy. And what I mean by that is being able to put yourself in the shoes of a customer and sort of empathize with what their experience of your product will be with fresh eyes, and make sure that you're always designing around those fresh eyes instead of what you think is right. And, part of that, of course, means getting anything, a minimum viable product in front of customers as quickly as possible, because that iteration is really how you discover your product. I guess that's the final point, is that the best products aren't really invented, they're discovered.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool, Peter. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Next in Time podcast. And I'm looking forward to seeing how CertifyIt comes into fruition.
Thank you, ST. It was a pleasure.